Section 1. A mother's love and a son's promise. A long time ago, there lived a kind woman named Martha. She was not rich. She didn't wear fancy clothes or live in a big house. But she had something very special, a big, warm heart. Martha had a son named Derek. She loved him more than anything in the world. When Derek was just a baby, something very sad happened. Martha's husband, Derek's dad, died in an accident at work. Martha cried and cried, but she knew she had to be strong for her little boy. So Martha wiped her tears, hugged Derek close, and promised herself, "I will take care of you. I will give you everything I can." Martha didn't have a fancy job. She cleaned motel rooms every day. Sometimes she cleaned 10 rooms, sometimes more. The work made her back ache and her hands sore, but she never complained. She saved every dollar, skipping her own lunch many times so Derek could eat a little more. She bought used clothes for herself and brand new shoes for Derek. She walked to work so he could take the school bus. And every night, no matter how tired she was, she helped Derek with his homework. Martha was proud when Derek got good grades. She cheered the loudest at his school plays. She smiled as he grew taller and smarter. "That's my boy," she would whisper, her eyes full of joy. When Derek grew up, he went to college. Martha didn't have much money, but she used all her savings to help pay his fees. Sometimes she worked extra hours to buy his books. Derek was thankful, but he didn't always understand how hard it was for her. Still, Martha never said a word. She only smiled and said, "I'm happy if you're happy." Years passed. Derek finished school and got a good job. He married a woman named Tanya. They had 2 children, and Martha was so excited to be a grandma. Her heart was full of love. As Martha got older, her body started to slow down. Her knees hurt when she walked, and her hands shook when she tried to hold a spoon. One day, she told Derek, "I think it's time for me to stop working soon." Derek and Tanya nodded. Then Derek said something that made Martha smile. "Mom," he said, "why don't you come live with us? This house was yours, after all. You paid it off years ago. You can rest now. You've done enough." Martha felt warm inside. She had worked her whole life, and now her son was offering her a safe place to live, a place she had once built with her own hard work. So Martha moved in with Derek and Tanya. She gave them the house, signed all the papers, and said, "It's yours now. Just promise me one thing." "What, Mom?" Derek asked. "Promise you'll take care of me," she said. "Of course, forever," Derek said. Martha believed him. At first, everything was nice. Martha helped cook dinner and read stories to her grandkids. She folded laundry and watered the flowers. She even worked part-time at a church, sweeping floors and helping in the kitchen. It was hard, but she liked feeling useful. But one day, Martha went to the doctor. The doctor looked at her kindly and said, "Martha, your back is not strong anymore. You need to stop working. You need rest." Martha nodded. She didn't want to stop working, but her body was tired. She quietly told the church she had to stop. She didn't tell anyone else, not even Derek. That night, Tanya noticed Martha didn't go to work. "Why are you home?" Tanya asked sharply. "I'm not well," Martha said softly. "My back hurts too much now." Tanya frowned. "So you just gave up?" Derek came into the room. Martha looked at him, hoping he would speak up, but he didn't. "We can't afford to take care of you if you're not working," Derek said quietly. Martha's heart sank. "But this is the house I gave you. I thought I could stay." "It's not working out," Tanya said. "You'll have to find somewhere else to go." Martha said nothing. She didn't cry. She just nodded slowly and walked to her room. She packed her clothes into a small suitcase. She folded her apron, the one she had worn for years, and tucked it gently inside. She looked around the room once more. It had once been filled with baby Derek's laughter. Now it was silent. She opened the front door and stepped out. No one stopped her. No one hugged her goodbye. She walked 3 streets away and sat on a cold bus bench. Cars drove by. People laughed and walked past. But Martha sat still. She thought about all the years she had worked. about the home she had given away, about the promise Derek had made. She wasn't angry, just tired, so very tired. But what Derek didn't know, what no one knew, was that Martha had a secret. Years ago, when her husband died, Martha had found an old paper among his things. It was for a piece of land, far away. Everyone had told her, sell it. It's worthless. But Martha had held on to it, year after year, paying a little bit in taxes just to keep it. Last fall, something amazing happened. A man came to her and said, "We want to build a solar project on that land. We'll pay you $1.4 million. Martha was shocked. "I want it kept quiet," she said. She put the money in a trust fund. It was hers, but no one could see it. Only she could use it. So when she left Derek's house, she wasn't poor. In her purse was a bank card and a checkbook tied to that money. She could buy anything she wanted. But Martha didn't go to a hotel or a fancy apartment. Instead, she walked to a women's shelter and knocked on the door. "Do you have a bed?" she asked. The lady at the front desk nodded. "We have a warm meal, too." Martha smiled. "That sounds lovely." She spent the night there, surrounded by women who knew what it meant to be forgotten. She felt comfort there, not because it was beautiful, but because it was kind. The next morning, Martha looked out the window at the sun rising. She knew something. Her story was not over. She was not done giving love. She was not done building something good. She was not done being Martha. Section 2. The quiet goodbye and a secret hope. Martha didn't cry as she left her son's house. She had lived a life full of love, full of work, full of giving. Now, for the first time, she had no home to go to, but that didn't mean she was lost. She walked slowly to the edge of town. Her knees ached and her back felt stiff, but she kept walking. In her purse was something no one knew about, her bank card and a small checkbook connected to a big secret. $1.4 million in her name. She had chosen not to tell Derek. She wanted to see if he would love her when she had nothing to give. But now she knew. She had been pushed out, not for what she did, but because she could no longer give. That night, Martha stayed at the women's shelter. The bed was small. The blanket was thin, but the people were kind. One lady gave her a warm cup of tea. Another smiled and asked her name. "Martha," she said with a tired smile. In the morning, the sun peeked through the dusty window. Martha sat up slowly. Her body still hurt, but her heart was beginning to feel strong again. She looked out the window and whispered to herself, "This is not the end." After breakfast, Martha left the shelter and walked until she reached the very edge of town. There, hidden behind tall grass and wild trees, she found a small cottage. The roof had holes. The windows were cracked. The fence leaned to one side. But Martha saw something else. She saw hope. She saw a new beginning. With her savings and wisdom, she bought the cottage quietly using something called a holding company. She named it Grace Holdings, LLC, a name that reminded her of peace and second chances. No one knew it was hers. She started fixing the cottage herself. First, she hired a kind man from the church to patch the roof. Then a young woman came and painted the walls. Martha planted flowers by the walkway, daisies, roses, and sunflowers. Each day, Martha felt stronger. She baked bread in the tiny kitchen. She drank tea on the porch. She smiled at the birds that sang in the trees. Though no one knew where she was, Martha was happy, not because of the money, not because of the house, but because she was building something with love again, just like she did long ago. One afternoon, as she sat on the porch, a thought came to her heart. "What if I build a place," she whispered, "where no one feels forgotten?" So Martha began to dream. She visited shelters and soup kitchens. She listened to stories of people who were hungry, cold, or alone. She met mothers with children who had no homes. She met grandfathers who had no one to talk to. And every time, her heart grew bigger. She remembered how it felt to be pushed out. She remembered sitting on that cold bus bench. "I want to build a table," she said one day. "A place where everyone has a seat." With care, she used her money to start something special. She found a small building not far from her cottage, empty and worn out, but full of promise. She bought it quietly, just like she did with the cottage, and started to fix it. She painted the walls soft yellow. She planted flowers by the door. She put a long wooden table in the middle of the room. Then she made a big sign for the front, Martha's Table. It wasn't named after her to show off. It was named after what she believed in, a table where everyone is welcome, no matter who they are or where they came from. She invited kind people to help her. Some baked bread, others made soup, some gave old coats and shoes. And slowly, Martha's Table became a place where anyone in need could come and feel at home. There was always a warm meal, a clean blanket, and a gentle smile waiting. Children came after school to do homework. Mothers came to rest and talk. Fathers came to find hope and kindness. And through it all, Martha was there, smiling, listening, and loving. She wore her old apron, the one she had packed in her suitcase when she left Derek's house. It reminded her of who she was, a mother, a helper, a giver. Time passed. More and more people came to Martha's Table. But even as the center grew, Martha stayed humble. She still swept the floors. She still made tea. She still planted flowers. She didn't want thanks. She didn't want praise. She only wanted one thing, for no one to feel the way she had felt that night she sat on the bench alone. But far away, in a very different part of town, Derek's life was falling apart. Without his mother's help, bills started to pile up. Without her warm meals and quiet advice, the house felt cold. Tanya grew angry and worried. She and Derek argued more and more. The children cried at night. Derek lost his job. Then they lost the house. One day, Tanya packed her bags and took the children with her. She said, "I can't live like this anymore." Derek was left alone. He had no home, no job, no family. He stayed on a friend's couch. He ate crackers for dinner. His heart was full of sadness. He thought about his mother. He remembered how she always made things better, how she never complained, how she gave him everything she had, even her house. And now she was gone. One cold afternoon, Derek walked to the public library to stay warm. He picked up a flyer on the front desk. The words made him stop. Martha's Table, a place for everyone. He blinked. Could it be? He read it again. Free meals, warm beds, kind hearts. Derek felt something in his chest. A tiny spark. A tiny hope. "I have to see it," he whispered. So he walked. His legs were tired. His shoes had holes. But he kept walking, step by step, all the way across town. At last he saw it. A small yellow building. Flowers by the door. And a wooden sign above. Martha's Table. He stepped inside. It was warm. It smelled like fresh bread. Children laughed. People smiled. And there, sitting at the front desk, was someone he thought he might never see again. "And Mom," Derek whispered. Martha looked up. Her eyes met his. She stood slowly. Derek dropped to his knees and began to cry. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know. I was so wrong." Martha walked to him and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "It's okay," she said softly. "You're here now." Derek looked up with teary eyes. "Why didn't you tell me you had all this?" Martha smiled gently. "Would it have changed anything?" she asked. "I needed to know who would stay when there was nothing left to give." Derek didn't know what to say, but his mother did. She hugged him, and in that hug was everything: love, forgiveness, and a second chance. Section 3. A table of forgiveness and forever love. After that first day, Derek kept coming back to Martha's Table. At first, he came just to see his mother. He was still ashamed of how he had treated her. He had tossed her out of her own house. He had listened to Tanya when she called Martha lazy. He had turned away from the one person who had loved him no matter what. But Martha didn't hold anger. She held out her arms. She held out love. She gave Derek a clean shirt and a hot bowl of soup. She sat with him under the trees and listened while he talked. He told her everything: how he had lost a house, how Tanya had left, how he had cried at night, not knowing where to go. And Martha didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't say, "You should have listened." She only said, "You're home now." Over the next few weeks, Derek began helping around Martha's table. He fixed wobbly chairs. He swept the floor. He carried boxes of food into the pantry. He helped children with their reading and peeled carrots in the kitchen. People began to smile at him. "Thanks, Mr. Derek," they'd say as he handed out sandwiches or poured milk. For the first time in a long time, Derek felt like he belonged. Each evening, after the center closed, Derek and Martha would sit outside on the bench. They'd watch the sunset paint the sky with pink and orange. They'd listen to the wind rustle the leaves in the trees. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they didn't. But always they were together. One Friday night, as children played tag in the yard and laughter filled the air, Martha reached into her purse and pulled out an old, soft envelope. She handed it to Derek. He looked at it with surprise. Inside, he found two things: the original deed to the house, the one he had lost, a voided check for $1.4 million. He looked up at her, eyes wide. "I don't understand," he whispered. Martha smiled softly. "I kept the land all those years," she said. "And when the right time came, I sold it. Quietly. I didn't want the money to change who I was, or who you were." Derek shook his head slowly. "But you could have had anything. You could have lived in a mansion. You could have traveled the world." Martha laughed gently, the way mothers do when their children don't yet understand. "I didn't want things," she said. "I wanted to be useful. I wanted to make a place where no one would feel cast aside. That's why I built Martha's table." Derek held the envelope close to his chest. "I don't deserve this," he said, voice cracking. Martha reached out and touched his hand. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "But now you know what happens when love comes before pride." That night, Derek sat awake in a small room at the center, thinking about everything. His mother had given him life, love, and even her home. She had been pushed away and forgotten. Yet, instead of revenge, she had built a table full of kindness, a table full of welcome, a table full of second chances. From that moment on, Derek changed. He woke up early and worked hard. He took classes at the community center and learned how to help people better. He even began leading a group for fathers who had made mistakes and wanted to start over. He didn't talk much about the money. He didn't want to. What mattered most now was the life he was building with his mother and for others. Martha grew older, but her eyes still sparkled. She moved a bit slower, but her hugs were just as warm. Every time she saw a child smile or a mother find rest, she knew she had made the right choice. Years passed. One morning, Martha didn't wake up. She had passed away peacefully in her sleep, holding her favorite picture of Derek as a boy and a note that simply said, "Keep the table full." The funeral was quiet. No golden coffins. No cameras. Just people. Hundreds of them. Mothers, children, fathers, neighbors. They came with stories. They came with tears. They came with love. Each one had been touched by Martha's table. Each one had found a seat at her side. Derek stood at the front, holding her old apron in his hands. His voice trembled as he spoke. "My mother gave everything when she had nothing," he said. "And when she could have taken revenge, she chose to give. She built something beautiful, not with bricks or money, but with kindness." He looked around the room, full of people Martha had helped. "She taught me," he said, "that the doors that close behind you can never match the ones you open for others." Everyone nodded. Many cried. And outside the church, carved above the front door of Martha's table, were the very same words: "The doors that close behind you can't match the ones you open for others." Martha didn't leave behind a mansion. She didn't leave behind fame. But she left something more powerful: a home for the hurting, a table for the forgotten, a legacy of quiet strength and unconditional love. And Derek? He didn't just become the son she had always hoped for. He became the man she knew he could be. And every Friday evening, he sat on the same bench where they once watched the sunset, smiling as children played, as bread was baked, and as love continued to be shared at the table that Martha built. After Martha passed away, her will was read quietly at the church office. To everyone's surprise, except a few close friends, she had left everything to Derek. Not just the money, not just the deed to the house, but the whole of Martha's table. "She trusted you," the pastor said, and she believed you would keep the table full. Derek held the documents in his hands. They were heavy, not just with value, but with meaning. Words spread slowly. And one day, Tanya came back. She had heard about the money, about the building, about Derek's new life. She showed up at Martha's table one afternoon, wearing a new coat and makeup. She smiled sweetly and said, "I made a mistake. Let's start over." Derek looked at her, his face calm. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't get angry, but he stood firm. "You didn't want this life when it was just struggle," he said. "You only want it now that it's full." Tanya tried to explain. She cried. She said the kids missed him. She said she missed him. But Derek had learned something from his mother. Love is not about what you get. It's about what you give. He spoke kindly, but with truth. The kids deserve better. And so do I. After a long and careful court process, the judge agreed. The children came to live with Derek. He welcomed them with open arms, like his mother had once welcomed him. Tanya was asked to leave and not return to Martha's table unless she truly needed help. That day, Derek stood where his mother once stood, not with revenge in his heart, but with a sense of quiet justice. He was no longer the man who had failed her. He was the man she had believed in.